Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Five Door Media Podcast. On this season two, we are diving into the topic of AI, for specifically for home service businesses using artificial intelligence to streamline operations, boost productivity, and create more freedom in their lives and businesses. As a marketing agency, we've seen firsthand how fast AI is reshaping the way home service companies can quote jobs, schedule crews, hire talent, and serve customers. That's why this season is dedicated to practical, real world conversations with business owners and leaders who are putting AI to work, turning innovation into impact, automation into profitability, and insights into action. Let's get into today's conversation. Our guest today is Morgan Knox. Morgan Knox is the founder of Knox Out AI, a forward thinking leader in leveraging artificial intelligence to transform how businesses operate and connect. With a deep passion for integrating emerging technologies into the service space, Morgan brings a unique blend of strategic vision and practical implementation. Known for her innovative mindset and dedication to helping others scale with systems, Morgan is not just a builder building smarter businesses, she's pioneering a more human centered future through tech. Morgan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Drew. Thank you so much for having me. And can I say, what a great introductory bio?
Well, appreciate it. I may have used AI to help write that. So we're starting off strong with this episode.
We are starting off strong, especially considering accuracy. I think the last AI bio somebody wrote for me had some wild hallucinations, but yours was 100% spot on. So I appreciate
Though, the custom GPT that I use, I've said make sure we don't have any hallucinations and any of the outcomes that come from it. But hey, thank you for being here. I'm excited to have this conversation. I think you could provide real value to our audience, which is, home service business owners that are maybe some have dipped their toes in AI. Some think AI is going to take over the world and they're terrified of it. Or maybe some people that are listening are fully implementing it and using it and just looking for more education on the topic. So tell us up front how you are involved in AI and what sparked your interest to begin with.
Yeah, it's such a good question. I like to tell everyone, I joke, I'm a recovering accountant. And what I mean by that is in a prior life, I was a managing partner in a niche bookkeeping and tax firm that specialized in working with skilled trade businesses and contractors. So, a handful of years ago, I sold my shares in that partnership and moved into coaching and consulting for contractors full time. And a couple of years ago, I became really personally interested in AI tools and applications for my own work, for my own workflows, and started to like naturally make its way into the consulting work that I was doing. So that was a lot of like fractional CFO, mergers and acquisitions consulting, and just a lot of old fashioned like operational hands in helping build systems, helping deploy things. Pretty soon, AI became the only thing that contractors were seeking me out for. So
Mm.
about 2.5 years ago, it just became the main component of things that I teach workshops on. Understandably, heavy emphasis on how AI is disruptive in spaces like accounting and financial review, but just across the board, operational application and use cases. So yeah, that's how I show up in this space. I kind of wear a couple of hats. By day, I am a senior director of the tech company House Call Pro, really helping to push the envelope on what AI and human service delivery looks like for accounting and tax solutions for contractors. And then I love to moonlight and still teach some workshops and do some enablement consulting for contractors who just want an answer to the question, I know I need it. Where do I even start?
I love it. And talking about where do you even start? I've been asking this question on this season because I think it's a fun way to look back. Do you remember the first time you saw something AI and something clicked in your head? Okay, this is going to be something. What I have to look into this. Do you remember like the first thing you maybe saw AI do or where you were? I always say like everybody remembers where they were when the Hindenburg crashed. Also, everybody remembers the first time they heard of AI and like what it looked like. What was that experience for you?
Yeah, for me, it was actually back when image creation was like the first big tool. So when Midjourney launched, I think it was in like the summer of 2022. So this was actually 5 or 6 months before ChatGPT arrived on
Mm.
the scene. I was fascinated with the idea to create incredible art, photorealistic things. So started to be really motivated from a like creative capacity to be able to engage with that. And then, of course, really quickly just started thinking about how disruptive is this going to be on logo design and the future of marketing and how we create imagery to go along with and engage our audience on social media. So a lot of that initial light bulb moment was around like, oh, I can, show somebody how to create some really great logo designs or do some things to make their website even more interactive and personalized for their brand. And it just kind of escalated from there.
Yeah, imaging, and then obviously with the Google VO3, the stuff that's coming out, like the video side, it's probably mind-blowing, do you think, like, how good you thought that image was in 2022, and then, like, to see what we have now. I always laughed. I remember the images that came out first through AI tools, especially ones of humans. Like, everybody had, like, 20 fingers. See, you knew what I was gonna say. Everybody had, like, 20 fingers. We looked like some sci-fi horror film villain, with those hands for some reason. They could do everything else, but, like, for some reason, couldn't get the hands right.
Yeah, hands are super hard for human artists too, which is really funny to see, but totally agreed. And it is incredible to think about how far the technology's come through present
Yeah.
day. It's kind of like if anyone who's ever had to get glasses can relate to, right? When you're a kid, you think you're like walking through the world looks fine, and then one day somebody tells you to
Yeah.
put glasses and you can finally see leaves. Like leaves are individual, whereas before they just looked kind of like a blur. Sort of the same thing with how good AI image generation has gotten for us.
So true. Well, let's dive into home service specific. That's the majority of people that will listen to this podcast or watch the clips or anything like that, where are in that home service world, and you're in that world too, right? So tell me, what is like the biggest area you're seeing home service business owners maybe underutilizing AI in their businesses, whether it's through marketing or whether it's through systems, processes. Where do you see people underutilizing it?
Yeah. Funnily enough, these days I kind of joke with contractors that I think that just about everyone is actually an avid user of AI these days because it's so embedded in the different tools and tech stack and things that everyone's already using in the day to day in their business. So, when people are kind of overwhelmed by the conversation, I like to start off with that like, give yourself a pat on the back. You're using AI on a daily basis. You probably don't even realize it. But as far as like an intentional use case of where we could start thinking about um, really, really wanting to pull AI into our daily workflows. I really think some of the lowest hanging fruit and the highest leverage for local service businesses, construction companies is just teaching their teams and giving their teams a little more of a framework to start using something like ChatGPT or Gemini or
Mm.
Microsoft Copilot off the shelf in their day to day workflows. And the way that I articulate that is I like to say, the pivot that you should be making is teaching your team for every single person to start thinking about if they're the CEO of their role, right? If I'm the
Mm.
CEO of this specific job, I've now been given an executive assistant that can do a lot for me. Start actually using that executive assistant, which is like Chat GPT. And so much will flow from there.
I think that's so good because I think it's one thing we're talking about the owners, but when you get into like the employee standpoint of this, I've heard multiple stories. Employees are hesitant, maybe even more than owners are, because they're afraid, oh, I'm going to AI my way out of a job. Like, I don't want to be like too good at AI because then will I get a paycheck anymore? Will the AI that I'm implementing and creating take over my position? Have you heard stories like that too? What are you hearing from owners, or, but especially from like the employee standpoint as well?
Yeah, you hit on like such a powerful piece there. And not only have I heard this, I've directly experienced it a lot in some of the consulting that we've done, which is this fear of change and how important it is to think about change management when we start introducing something that's frankly incredibly disruptive. So there's a few things that happen mostly when we start to use AI in the day to day of our business. One of the number one things that we start doing is like recording everything, right? Transcribing everything, trying to collect
Mm.
data on everything so that you can plug it into AI and do more with it. And so for your team who maybe for a long time haven't been having a lot of scrutiny or a lot of visibility into what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, this increased visibility and that increased accountability is very, very uncomfortable. So that's one piece of it. And then, of course, like you mentioned, the next piece is, well, what am I going to do after this if AI is stepping in and doing all of these things? So it's a really understandable concern and understandable fear. So, a couple of things. The first would be, hey, as the business owner, it's your job to manage the public relations. You're the PR manager for AI in your business. And I think the best thing that you can do is like get ahead of the narrative and really
Mm.
explain to people we're using this in tandem with our day to day and try to speak to the identity of your team and how they relate to their work, but tie that identity to the value that they're producing and not the specific task work, the grunt work of what they're doing. So that can be a really, really powerful way of helping them understand and kind of painting the vision of that future of like what their role really can look like when they're even more productive. They can do so much more with the same amount of tools, and it's at a higher value use case for them, right? Instead of spending so much time slogging through drafting things, they can do so much more effective, valuable work, and really help them come into their own. So, a couple of different things there that we definitely want to be super mindful of whenever we're asking our team to embrace these things. Doesn't hurt to tie their performance pay as well into some more efficient KPIs that are supported
Mm.
by how much AI can drive in their roles.
I love that. Very cool. Yeah, because there's a quote been said by multiple people on this season so far. AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows it, knows how to speak it, and knows how to utilize it will. So like that employee standpoint, the software might not, or the AI might not take your job completely, but like companies will start looking for people who know how to speak it, who know how to use it, know how to utilize it. So you might as well jump on to. And I love how you said the owner should be the head of H or PR for AI inside their company. Like be the biggest fan for it to build that up. Well, speaking of owners too, I mean, and you probably deal with that ownership that I was talking about, like across the board, like people that are terrified of it, people that are slightly dipping their toes in it, and then also people that are utilizing it. But what do you think the one or two things that are the biggest hang up for owners on why they haven't jumped in yet, or why they haven't dipped maybe their whole foot and not just a few toes into this AI world? What are some hangups that you're seeing from like some owners?
Definitely some analysis paralysis, right? There's just so much and it touches so many things. Like, where do I even start? How do I even begin? And I think one of the easiest ways to get over that bridge is to really just see some cool examples of things that other businesses are doing. So there's a lot of really neat things you can come across: Facebook groups, podcasts like this, just a little bit of light YouTube browsing, and
Mm,
start somewhere, right? Start with a little bit, grab a couple of quick wins and let that fuel the desire to keep, digging in and playing around a little bit more. And I also think, part of what's really helpful around that paralysis is encouraging people to start using it personally and thinking about it in their
mm.
personal lives, right? If you had a Google Assistant that was really, really leveled up, really to that executive assistant level, but for your personal life, start there and see how it helps you learn to think about what AI can do for you on the business side as well.
So true. Yeah, I remember. I'm trying to think back, like when I first got on the ChatGPT, it was just personal use, right? I was trying to figure out, like, when I found out it could do like meal planning, like within seconds by like taking a photo of what your fridge looks like and can see what ingredients are there and then make a meal plan out. Like that blew my mind. We've actually started using it quite a bit for just our family traveling. So when we're recording this, it is like nearly Father's Day weekend. So we're going up to Detroit, Michigan for like a little weekend getaway to explore Detroit with the family this weekend, and I've never really explored Detroit. I know nothing about it. I've heard it's been revitalized in the coolest way. I'm really looking forward to it. But we typed in, what do we do? I have two kids, 11 and 9. We like museums, we like zoos, we like those kind of things. Here's the food we like. Here are our allergies, because my wife and daughter have like food allergies. And I say, here's the days we're going to be there. Plan us something. And it spit out this entire travel itinerary within seconds, and that's what we're doing. And we did the exact same thing for San Francisco late last year. It planned our San Francisco trip. We even like gave her the flight numbers so it knew when we were flying in, when we were flying out, where our hotel was. So you're right. I think a good way to get more comfortable with it is let it blow your mind for you for personal reasons. And then, business and other purposes can follow from there.
Absolutely. It is a great travel assistant, isn't it? Or
Really is.
travel planner.
Yeah. Yeah, remember like travel agents? Like that used to be a career.
Yeah.
I mean, some people still exist. I know we have a travel agent actually for Disney plans because we're a big like Disney family. And if you've ever done Disney, the amount of details and variables that go into a Disney trip are more intimidating than the topic of AI at times. So we have somebody that helps us out with that. But like there used to be like you couldn't book a flight if you
Yeah.
didn't have like a travel agent back in the day.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
why.
for sure.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
yeah, and to back to that question too about, what else tends to be the piece that, people pause or they resist around. And I think a big part of that is a concern that if we start using some of these AI for these different things, well, it's not as good as a human, right? It's not doing it the exact same way that a human would. And so I like to, tie that back to a couple of different concepts and analogies. And like the first one is, most of us who have done any kind of like business coaching have heard this saying around, when you start to delegate things as a business owner, if you can find someone that's going to do it 80% of the way that you would do it, that's a win for successful
Mm.
delegation, right? And so I think that's really the way that we want to think about AI in these different areas. It still needs oversight, it still needs review, but if it's going to get you 80% of the way there, that's a huge win, even when we compare it to like delegating to a human. And I also like to kind of tie it back to the joke. Drew, have you heard the joke about the two hikers hiking through the forest, talking about how terrible it would be if they encountered a bear? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I've never heard that joke before.
Well, it's just like two hikers hiking through the woods talking about how, oh, it would be awful if we ran into a bear. And the first hiker says, to the second, it'd be terrible. Like there's no way that we would outrun the bear. And the second hiker says, well, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you. Right. And
Yikes.
that's how we think about AI in the business, which is that if we're thinking about how AI is comparing and competing with humans, AI doesn't have to be perfect, right? If that
Mm.
bear is perfection, AI doesn't have to be 100% perfect out of the gate. It just needs to outpace and show up how a human might be showing up in terms of consistency and scalability and being available 24/7. There's definitely some key areas in the business where it's a pretty easy standard to beat.
Yeah, there's that phrase, right? 80% done by someone else is just as good as 100% done by you, right? And like that can be 80% done by AI is better than 100% done by you. Well, let's get to some like very practical, and you're in this world a lot, so you probably have some really cool stories, but like what are some like 1 to 2, 3, I got time, ways that you're seeing home service companies like really utilize AI and how it's changed internally, externally, what they're doing? And just help them become more efficient, but also like more profitable. What are some cool stories that you know recently?
Yeah, such a fun, exciting question. So one of the first when I think about like what's the super low hanging fruit, what's the area that AI can drive a lot of big wins within the business, and I think one of the easiest one is when we start talking about AI CSRs, AI voice receptionists, and
Mm.
the voice AI as well as the chatbot AI in terms of how it can suddenly make speed to lead so consistent throughout the entirety of the business's life cycle. So, Drew, you're a marketer. I know I'm preaching to the choir on this, but I assume this is probably a big part of what you're talking to your clients about all the time, too, which is like the power of speed to lead. Help me out. Tell me a little bit. Why is speed to lead so important for businesses?
I mean, if they are filling out a form, it's the prime opportunity. It's top of mind, right? They want to talk about it right there and then, and people are busier than we've ever been, right? So like they could fill out that form, click submit, look left and see a squirrel, and they've already forgotten about you. So it's top of mind right there.
Totally. And so 5 minutes go by and somebody hasn't had a really engaging interaction with your business, your chances of closing them have dropped something like 95%. And it just
Mhm.
gets worse from there the more time that goes by. So even before AI, this was one of the hugest levers that businesses operationally could be paying attention to. But now that we have AI, the ability for somebody to reach out and connect with your business 24/7 and get to skip past the annoying voicemail stage or skip past how many of us have ever called and hung up because we didn't wanna listen to the address and the store
Right.
hours and every department directory? So, in these ways, AI is really good at plugging in, responding to your customers. It can do anything secretarial. It can transfer calls. It can make plugging in with your human team even easier for your customer. But in so many cases, it will book those leads for you, right? Your sales team just has to show up and they've got appointments on the calendar that a human didn't even have to interact with. And so I think that's one of the earliest areas that I encourage people to look at, especially because the tech on that is polished enough that in a lot of cases it is outperforming a human or outperforming especially a human answering service. And the tech on that is getting to be quite cheap because it's pretty robust and it's been in the market
Mm.
for a while. A lot of people can plug it into your systems. So it's a really nice cost effective entry point into making sure that every touch point that someone has with your company is recorded and documented and having a pretty stellar experience.
Well, let's do some role play real quick. So I love this idea, but I am predicting what some of the listeners are going to respond to already hearing you say that.
For sure.
Well, nobody wants to talk to a robot through a phone call. Nobody wants to hear it. And like we've been frustrated with like automated answering machines our entire life. Why is this any better?
Yeah, it's a really
Your turn. Yeah.
Totally good question and a great objection to have. So first off, this doesn't have to replace the humans in your business. And I think a central theme we want everyone to consider here is like where can AI help us so that we're continuing to invest in our human teammates. So yeah, the gold standard is going to be that when someone calls your business, a knowledgeable, engaging human answers the phone and is able to help them with that. So anywhere like regular hours that you have that for your business, absolutely keep it. But we're talking about all of these other cases where that's not available. So maybe your stellar office manager who clients love talking to is on the phone helping a customer and someone else dials in. How can we help them in the meantime? And knowing that we're going to then follow up with a nice human engagement. Or your stellar office manager that everyone loves talking to is on vacation or God forbid has to go home at the end of the day and
It's the weekend. Yeah.
children, right? What are we doing the rest of the time? Second thing that I like to say is, double check with where the tech is right now. Most of the time, whenever you have a good polished provider for this service, I'd say the majority of the client calls that I've listened into whenever we help set these up, people get several minutes into a conversation before they even realize that it's an AI that they're talking
Mm.
because the voice is so good. And there's a give people a quick escalation pathway to talk to a human. So as long as they can say, give me a human, and a human gets on the phone as quickly as possible or gives them a call back, then you're really catering to the entirety of your market.
Yeah, very true. And I remember speaking about how fast technology. Oh, we're not role playing anymore, by the way. And scene. Well
Insane.
done. Yeah. So I remember we were talking about how fast technology is advanced. Probably around 2022, I heard my first AI voice call. Like a buddy of mine was testing it out. He said, "Call this number and act like you're scheduling a HVAC appointment." So I did, and there were like long pauses, right? The AI had to catch up, and like it was definitely more noticeable. But that is one of those things that have has grown tremendously, and it's seamless.
Yep.
So good actually. I could probably see some government regulations happening at some point where you have to like declare that it is an AI that you're talking to. But you're right. I mean, we work a lot with like cleaning companies, maid companies, and commercial and residential cleaning companies, and a lot of times the lead forms that people are getting the most are on the weekend, right? So like it's a busy mom that like knows they need help cleaning, or like a married couple know they need help cleaning, but they're so busy during the week. The last thing they want to take time for during their busy, hectic weeks is to fill out that contact form. So they call a lot on the weekends. So we did have a client where they were missing so many calls over the weekend. Speed delete is gone because by the time they get there on Monday morning at the office, that person is back to their busy lives and doesn't have time to talk anymore. So they're implementing this AI weekend only, call structure, and it's going to increase so many things, I think. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's such a good example. And when we think about like how does it beat the experience that people have been used to having, which is like businesses that are pretty professionalized and polished have probably been paying these after hours answering services.
Yep.
But what does that experience look like, right? Your customer calls, they want to find out some information, and it's a human note taker device. It's like sounds great. Maybe I can book an appointment, best case scenario, but they really can't substantively answer any questions. It's just like, let me write down your questions and someone will get back to you. The
Yep.
beautiful thing about AI now is that, you can give it a knowledge base of all of these different things and information. It can text people booking links. It can do all kinds of follow-on activities without a human ever having to get into the mix. So right there, it's already beating the standard that most receptionist services are falling into.
And I don't want to like ignore the emotional side of this too. I mean, we have a lot of going back to like that commercial and residential cleaning company, more on the residential side. For a homeowner to get to the point where they recognize I need help cleaning my home, that's an emotional moment for them, right? Like that is a moment of vulnerability where they are like really putting themselves out there. Like it's gotten so bad. I can't do it on my own. I need a solution. I would even imagine that first call might be better if it's not with an actual human.
Totally.
It takes away this boundary of like embarrassment if they are talking to the robot, or some sort of AI where it's not like a human hearing this right off the bat, but that AI software could get that basic information, could get them a quote even. Because in the cleaning world, it really has been systematized. You to ask a few questions, you could probably give them a good range of a quote, and we can go from there. So I think there's even that where, I mean, I don't know, a lot of people are just not fans of talking on the phone in general. I
Sure.
know that's something I'm working on with my kids because that's there's terrifying facts about how Gen Z and Gen Alpha like have zero social skills like face to face because they're never talking face to face, right? So like that's something we're working on. But like I think that's a realistic, maybe even a comfort thing for some customers is I don't have to be super vulnerable to another human right now. This is like another platform that I can speak to.
You touch on such a good note there, and we're absolutely seeing that play out in the data, which is that people will be much more frank and honest, and there is a big lowering of some of those psychological barriers when you know you're talking to an AI. It's not
Yeah.
touching you; it's just there to help you. And so, similarly, like internally to our businesses, we're seeing some really interesting operational use cases for like performance management and optimization. Personally, one of my favorite use cases for AI, I've been using ChatGPT so much for years. I'll get in there and I'll ask it to do some deep psychological profiles of me, right?
Mm,
Put on your world class coaching hat and tell me like what are the things that I'm not seeing? What are the things that I can maybe be doing better to support my team or my projects? And you can be more vulnerable with it sometimes in a way that is comfortable being with a human.
yeah.
Or use it to practice some of those hard conversations with your team. That's another interesting use case that we've seen for like role playing with AI voice. How do we get better at practicing those leadership skills that are really challenging to develop in our teams and in ourselves?
I love that. So true. Okay, so we're talking about AI voice. What's another cool story you've heard recently, like from a home service business that they've been able to increase efficiency and just become better overall because of AI?
Yeah, we were just talking about like AI voice for role playing and for coaching. So there's some really incredible tools that are designed and really well polished for this. Like Rilla Voice, Rilla AI is a really good
Hmm.
example that's been designed for, in-home sales. So that's idea of like every single call can be recorded and reviewed, and not just is it helping hold your sales team accountable to the processes that you're expecting them to follow through on, but it's got some really great analytics and coaching that let you look deeper into what are my top performers doing that they might not even know that they're doing that's making them so successful in these interactions? And how do we spread that love? So, every business that I have talked to that's implemented Rilla, and it's definitely very popular, especially with a lot of these franchise level systems that are really trying to like scale how effective their sales teams
Hmm.
are across the board, rave reviews for that. But even if you're not ready to jump into more of like a deeper tool like Rilla, using something like ChatGPT for some simple voice role playing, such a great way to get those reps in with your sales team, with your customer service reps, and then, like I mentioned, with your leadership team. So, practicing hard conversations with an AI to prepare you and make you better at it when you're having those conversations with your human team. So, really making us better communicators as kind of the optimistic idea that we want to be using AI to stretch those muscles, rather than, the flip side, letting the Gen Zers just never have to talk to a human again.
I love that. Very cool. Yeah. Okay. Let's fast forward 2 years. Where do you think AI has increased the most, and how close are we to where I become Tony Stark and have my own Jarvis,
Oh
like
my
whenever I want?
you're
How close am I?
you're days away from Jarvis.
Okay, good. That's all I want. That's all I
All
want
you
is that.
needed. It's all you needed to to be complete. It is an incredible question to ask 2 years out because the technology is exponential, which I think is hard for us to wrap our brains around. But a couple of the spaces that I'm really embedded in, like accounting, for example, what I can tell you is that the technology is there for an almost fully automated AI driven accounting solution. And right now, like the way that AI is showing up in these spaces is really strong, and really what the race is right now for everyone who lives in that space is like, well, how do I put it together in the best way possible and create the best experience with the highest confidence? And that's what everyone's like really tuned into. And I say we're really within a year, year and a half at
Wow.
really in the area of some very, very strongly AI driven accounting solutions. I definitely think that the bar is being raised at which businesses have to show up with some of these tools to just survive. And like the speed to lead, that great engaging interaction with your business is a key part of it. All of those things that businesses, especially contractors, used to struggle with, like, I never had a business plan. I don't have
Yeah.
SOPs. I don't have these things. The excuse is gone. You could create them so quickly and easily and really like have some better infrastructure and framework. And then, my kind of pie in the sky, what I'm thinking about is I think we're going to become more and more interested in wearable technology with AI.
Mm.
Screen free AI, I think, is what people are going to be more and more intrigued by, especially in the skilled trade space. I'll tell you right now, I'm looking really hard for which, AI glasses provider is
Hmm.
start putting safety glass into those glasses for like job site foremans and stuff. I'm like,
Wow. Yeah.
that's where I'm gonna put my investment dollars. But I do think that we want more ways to be productive and use the technology without having to be glued to a screen. We're gonna get really fatigued. So you're right. Jarvis is what everyone's after.
Yeah. Yeah. Google Glass was way ahead of its time, right? Remember those glasses? They came out, they were way
Yep.
ahead of their time.
Yep.
Love it.
It was just
All right.
too early. Just too
It
early.
really was. It really was. Okay, so my last question, I want to know, someone's listening to this. Congratulations, you and I, we've talked them into starting to mess around with AI, right? What would you suggest their first, attempts or tries, whether it's like a specific AI software or certain blogs, even books or anything like that? Where do they jump in the waters first?
Mm, I would say, hard to beat a good old fashioned chat GPT, like plug in and just start using it day to day, anything that catches your fancy, meal planning. But I think, like, especially when you're thinking about drafting an email or a document or even anything you might be doing in a spreadsheet as a business owner, start with AI and see how far you can get the AI to go for you because you're going to be really impressed and surprised by how much time it cuts out for you, and it's going to open your mind to the possibilities of where you can take it from there.
I love it. Very cool. All right, well, folks, that is a wrap for today's episode. I hope you walked away with some clear, actionable ways to start thinking about AI not as a threat, but as a part in your business. AI is no longer the future. Trust me, it is here now. And like every tool, it's not about the tech itself, it's about how you use it to serve better, grow smarter, and lead stronger. Hey, thank you for being here, Morgan. I really appreciate this conversation. Before we go, where can people connect with you, learn more about your work, or maybe follow along with what you're building?
Oh, it was great to get to join you, Drew. Anyone who's interested in staying in touch with me, you can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn under Morgan Knox. Pretty easy to find online. And you can stay in touch with what we're doing for AI training at knoxoutai.com. Spoiler alert, we're usually pretty booked up, but that's a great way to reach out and stay in touch with me and the team.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for watching this episode. Morgan, thank you for being here and dropping all the knowledge that you did. Make sure to tune in. We've got a few more episodes left on this AI season of the Five Door Media podcast. And then I can announce season 3 pretty soon, which I'm pretty excited about. So thank you for watching this episode. We'll see you next time.